He was not someone who attracted much national attention. He was not the darling of the media or a favorite of the Washington press corps. He never sought the limelight. Outside his home state, his name was not well known. But this plain-speaking Westerner, United States Senator Lee Metcalf of Montana, left a lasting mark on American life. In 1952, Lee Metcalf won another close race. This time, he was elected to Congress.
We should increase the minimum wage.
We want a tax break for working mothers. Up to now, there's been very little relief for anyone outside the upper income bracket. Americans everywhere have every right to expect that this Congress will turn in a solid record of accomplishment on domestic affairs, including Social Security improvement, farm price adjustment, school and highway construction, and, of course, natural resource development, among other things.
Having now grown to 3 when Lee and Donna welcomed a foster son, Jerry, into their family, the Metcalfs headed to Washington, D.C., where Lee hit the ground running. They called it the Timber Exchange Bill. The big lumber interests wanted the federal government to swap forested public lands for private lands that had already been clear-cut of timber. Lee called it thievery and rallied enough support to stop it. It was a remarkable victory for a freshman congressman, but Lee Metcalf was setting the stage for a remarkable career. Lee's reputation for integrity and hard work was growing. He had become a skilled legislator. A powerful influence in the House of Representatives is how the New York Times referred to Lee near the end of his 4th term. At home, Lee forged a political coalition that would serve him his entire career. The core of his support would come from organized labor, small farmers, liberals, conservationists, and veterans. A lifelong horticulturist, Lee loved to grow flowers. Then there was Donna. Lee valued her opinion highly, consulting with her regularly about his political and legislative ideas. She was a tireless campaigner, wife, friend, alter ego. Donna and Lee stood side by side for nearly 40 years.
Today, the Clean Air Act, water pollution control, and recreation resources have passed as a result of public awareness.
Morris Udall said, Lee Metcalf was, and always will be Mr. Wilderness. Many regard him as the most important voice ever heard in the United States Senate on conservation and environmental issues. The most important voice ever. He is responsible for the first pesticide control legislation to protect fish and wildlife. He introduced the Save Our Streams bill. He helped write the Air Pollution Control Act and the Clean Air Act. He sponsored the Clean Water Act and the Water Pollution Control Act. He wrote the Strip Mining Reclamation Act. He is responsible for a multitude of timberland reforms. Lee Metcalf's crowning achievement was the Wilderness Act, and he followed that with the Alaska Lands Act and the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. It is an unparalleled achievement. He spent his energy unsparingly. Lee Metcalf did not conserve himself. By the early 1970s, his health began to falter. He was reluctant to stand for re-election in 1972, but the pressure mounted, and in time, Lee agreed to run again. It would be his final election. Lee suffered a round of health problems throughout 1977. Frustrated, Lee told a reporter, "I want to go home. For 30 years I've been running for public office. 30 years is long enough. I want to go home and live in Montana." Lee never got his wish. Lee cared little for personal headlines. He was more likely to give credit than take credit. He never sought the public limelight. In fact, he seemed determined to avoid it. Lee was fond of saying that he regarded his political career as just one man pulling an oar, trying to propel a leaky boat. But Lee Metcalf was more than that. Few today remember his name, but his achievements are lasting. After Lee's death, one newspaper editor wrote this epitaph: "He was a rare breed of man. He was from the people and spoke for the people. His death leaves a void that can never be filled." but he leaves behind a legacy that should inspire us. God has a special place in heaven for this great man, and as long as America lives, Lee Metcalf has a special place in our history.